Good morning to all the students of class 9th. We were doing this poem, A Legend in the Northland, from your Beehive book. Here in this tutorial, we'll be doing paraphrasing of each stanzas in the poem. Let's start.
This poem narrates the legend of an old lady who angered Saint Peter because of her greed. In the previous tutorial, I had already explained you the whole summary of this poem, where a lady had angered Saint Peter because of her greed, because she couldn't part away with the cakes she made. Away in the Northland, where the hours of the day are few and the nights are so long in winter that they cannot sleep them through. So here the poet introduces us with the place called Northland, okay, from where the story is derived, and the place name is Northland. The poet says that here in this place the days are short, and the nights are long in winter season. It's winter time. So therefore it is very difficult to sleep for so many hours in the dark throughout the night, because the nights are long. Where they harness the swift reindeer to the sledges when it snows, and the children look like bear's cubs in their funny furry clothes. Here, what is the meaning of reindeer? Reindeer is deers found in the cold region to draw the sledge. Sledge is a vehicle without wheels that is used traveling in the snow. You must have seen in the television or somewhere around that where there is a snowfall, you must have seen reindeer, a dog, a deer-like creature, a dog-like creature. They are drawing these sledges. So here, poet is telling that when the snow falls in the Northland, the people like sledging, so they rein the reindeer to the sledges. And here the little children wear heavy woolen clothes, and in their woolen clothes they look so cute, so funny, and they look like bear's cubs, little bear's cubs. So they are being compared to a bear's cubs. Like a bear's cub is so cute, so small, so funny and furry, and the children are being compared to it. They tell them a curious story. I don't believe it's true, and yet you may learn a lesson if I tell the tale to you. Now here the poet informs that how the elders tell the children are strange and curious stories. The poet herself don't believe in such stories. I don't believe it is true. Here the poet says that it doesn't seem that the story is true, but you may learn a lesson after hearing this story. Let's see what the story is, what the tale is all about. Here the story begins. Once, when this good Saint Peter lived in the world below and walked about it preaching, just as he did, Preaching is giving sermons. Now she begins the story. She says that once there was a saint, Saint Peter, who lived in the world. World below means earth, who lived in the planet Earth. He traveled around the whole world, preaching the world about God. He came to the door of a cottage in traveling round the earth, when a little woman was making cakes and baking them on the hearth. Hearth is a fireplace. The poet says that the condition of Saint Peter when he arrived at the women's place, it was very bad. Why? Because he was very tired, very hungry, pale, because he hadn't had anything since a long time. He was traveling. So he stopped there at the cottage door of this little woman to have something to eat. He asked for a piece of cake. She had already been baking cakes and keeping the cakes on the shelf at her place. And being faint with fasting, for the day was almost done, he asked her from her store of cakes to give him a single one. So he asked her a piece of cake because he was very hungry. Let's see what happened. So she made a very little cake, but as it baking lay, she looked at it and thought it seemed too large to give away. Now, when Saint Peter asked her a piece of cake, she made a very little cake for Saint Peter. But when she looked at it, she found that the cake is too large to give away. So what she did? Therefore she kneaded another and still a smaller one, and it looked, when she turned it over, as large as the first had done. Now when she found the first cake she had baked is too large, she decided to bake another one. And when she baked another one, she found that cake also as large as the first one. Now, the third time, she took a tiny scrape of dough and rolled it flat and baked it thin as a wafer, but she couldn't part with that. Now, the third time, she thought, now this time she will be bake a cake, and a very thin. How much thin? Thin as a wafer, thin as a slice, thin as a paper. And when she baked it, she couldn't part with that even. She couldn't even give that thin wafer-like cake to Saint Peter. For she said, my cakes that seem too small when I eat of them myself are yet too large to give away. So she put them on the shelf. She says now that whenever I bake cakes for myself, it appears to be very small for me when I eat it or when I bake it for myself. But when I have prepared it to give away, to give someone, to give to Saint Peter, it appears to be very big. It appears to be very large. So, one by one, the cake she was baking for Saint Peter, in the name of Saint Peter, she would find it big. So, she kept on putting those cakes on the shelf at her cottage. Then, good Saint Peter grew angry, for he was hungry and faint. And surely such a woman was enough to provoke a saint. Provoke means causing irritation and anger. Now, the Saint Peter waited so long, he became very angry with the inhuman behavior that the little woman showed to him. He was feeling so hungry and faint, he was so tired, and this lady on top of that couldn't give him a single piece of cake. This irritated, this angered Saint Peter a lot. And then he said, you are far too selfish to dwell in a human form, to have both food and shelter and fire to keep you warm. Saint Peter called this little woman a selfish lady. He told her that she doesn't deserve to have this comfortable life, to have this beautiful life as a human being. She doesn't deserve to have the lifestyle that a human being has. She doesn't deserve to have food, shelter, water, and and the fire to keep her warm. Now he cursed the lady. He further added, "You shall build as the birds do, and shall get your scanty food by boring and boring and boring, and all day in the hard, dry woods." Saint Peter cursed the lady, cursed the little woman, and he deprived her from all her comforts. He said, from now on, she would have to build her own home like other birds do. Like birds build their own nest, she would also have to build her own home and dig holes into the hard woods to get worms, insects to feed herself, and all day in the hard, dry wood. Wood means forest. Then up she went through the chimney, never speaking a word, and out of the top flew a woodpecker, for she was changed to a bird. Soon after, the woman was seen going up the chimney of her house, speechless, not a single word from her mouth, and it was found a woodpecker could be seen flying from her chimney. She had a scarlet cap on her head, and that was left the same, but all the rest of her clothes were burnt black as a coal in the flame. The last two stanzas here describes that how the woodpecker get its red cap. If you have seen a woodpecker, you must have seen on the top of her head, it's a red colored on top of her head. Let's see how this red color came from. The scarlet cap on her head was left untouched, while the rest of her clothes were burned to ashes. This little woman was wearing a red cap, and when she was turned into a woodpecker, that red cap was left as it is. That is why a woodpecker had a red color on the top of her head. And all the clothes that she was wearing, it was burnt into ashes. But the bird's head was still the same, which is shade of red. And every country boy, school boy, has seen her in the wood where she lives in the trees till this very day, boring and boring for food. At last the poet says that every countryside boy has seen the woodpecker in the forest doing what? Pecking into the bark of the trees, searching for food to eat. So students, this is a ballad, which means a song narrating a story in short stanzas. And a legend of the Northland is a short story narrating a story, and it's a song like. That is why it's a ballad. The poem is in ballad form. What have you understood from this poem? That greediness, that how important it is to be kind, to be generous, to be charitable in life. And if you are so much greedy in life, you will have to pay for it. One day you will be cursed for your greediness. So, you have learned a lesson from this poem that instill in yourself the values of kindness, generosity, charitable, irrespective who the person is, irrespective which caste, religion, creed the person belongs to, because everyone is a human being. No matter from where the person belongs to, you should always be helpful to others, be kind to others. Today, we are blessed with everything in life. You never know what happens next. You never know in which situation you find yourself today, tomorrow, or in coming future. And then when that time you will need help, who will going to help you? When you yourself are not helping others, then who will going to help you? So if you are helpful to others, if you are kind to others, then others will also be helpful towards you and kind towards you. And remember, the Almighty God is watching you for your good deeds, and you will be blessed for all the good things you do in life. Because we are the children of God, we have come in this world to live happily, to be kind, to be helpful, and we must not forget about this, that we should live our life peacefully and in harmony.
Literary devices used.
Students, let's discuss the literary devices used in the poem. I had already discussed with you all the different kinds of literary devices. Go through those, the definitions, go through the previous videos where I have taught you the different literary devices. Let's find out the devices used here. First device, that is away, away. Two words, away, has been repeated twice, and this is a vowel sound, away, away. Therefore we can say literary device assonance has been used here in this line, in these two words. Now next literary device, swift, sledge, snows. The consonant sound used in these two lines, we can say that which literary device? Consonants. Consonants has been used, that is repetition of the consonant sound. Next is simile, where the children look like beer's cups. A comparison where like or as is used, we say that simile, literary device simile, has been used in this line. Next, here you can see here this line, boring and boring and boring. The repetition of the word boring and boring and boring. So what is used here? Repetition. The literary device repetition has been used here in this line. So these are some literary devices, and if you find any other literary device in the poem, you can just write it down. This is just a very quick and fast literary devices that I've told you, and if you find other than these, you can just write it down on your own in your notebook. Students, these are some NCRT questions. You are supposed to do these questions 1 to 8 in your notebook, because the questions which I give you an assignment, those questions are not in your book. Those questions are extra questions. Beside those extra questions, you are required to do all the NCRT questions as well, because these are equally important. Okay, thank you so much.